who's also a master construction worker. He is the first shining example of Ayn Rand's ideal man, the great thinker who is a master of practical reality. Yeah, he is an intellectual man of the world, and he is a worldly man of the mind. I think there's a nice way. I like that phrase. He's an intellectual man of the world, and he is a worldly man of the mind. I like that formulation. I'll give that to you for the same price. All right, let's move on then. Anybody have any questions on Roark? Anybody who's read The Fountainhead doesn't understand Roark, I think maybe they ought to, well, start over again in elementary school. But I take that back. There's nothing in serious literature or in philosophy that's obvious, so I take that back. But I think if you look up the word independence in the dictionary, I think you will find a picture of Howard Roark there. He is the essence of, the stylized essence of the virtue of independence. Let's move on to Dominique, a fascinating character in The Fountainhead, and the most misunderstood character in The Fountainhead. And what Ayn Rand once described Dominique as herself in a bad mood. Now, the essence of Dominique's character is first-handed or independent cognitive functioning versus what Ayn Rand calls the malevolent universe premise. Observe the independence of her spirit. She recognizes immediately the genius of Roark's designs, no matter how many other people reject it. She identifies virtually immediately the evil of Toohey, despite society's claims of his sainthood. In fact, there's nobody in the universe of this story, except perhaps Roark himself, who understands who Toohey is, what Toohey is, how evil Toohey is, better than Dominique does. Because Roark's not concerned with that. When Dominique asks him at one time, Roark, what do you think of Toohey? Roark's response is, good God, Dominique, why would anyone think of Ellsworth Toohey? So Roark's unconcerned with recognizes as evil, but he's unconcerned with it. Dominique, who believes that the Tooheys have great power in the world and can destroy the Roarks, Dominique agonizes over it. But anyway, my main point here is she identifies Toohey's evil, even though the rest of society thinks that he's a saint. A third example of her independence is that she sees clearly that her own father is a phony and a fraud, and says so in the face of conventional beliefs that one must honor thy mother and thy father. Fourth, she's certain that Peter Keating is a fawning, flattering, manipulating parasite, no matter how much adulation he receives from society. So the problem here is not that she's a conformist, a follower of society, nor is that she's not like Keating, nor is it that she's a nonconformist, a rebel against society in the way that Lois Cook is. No, she is absolutely an independent thinker. Her error is honest, and is an issue of metaphysics, not of epistemology. That is, the error is about her view of the world, not her method of using her mind. She regards, this is what Ayn Rand calls the malevolent universe premise. She thinks that evil dominates, maybe more exact in this case would be a malevolent society premise, but certainly she thinks that evil dominates the human world, that the good has no chance to succeed in the world. In effect, that the Tooheys will rise to the top and control the political process. The Keatings and the Guy Franklins will be the successful architects. The Camerons will have been destroyed. The Roarks will be destroyed, etc. Yeah, it's a good point here. She knows, again, an indication of her independence. Another example, she knows that Cameron was a great architect. She also knows that Cameron, even though society rejects him, she also knows that society does reject him and that he ended up as a commercial failure. And she thinks that Roark will necessarily end up like Cameron, a rejected, lonely outcast with no clients, no business, no profession, and no hope. Now look at the conflict that Dominique is in. On the one hand, she is an impassioned idealist, And I'm using idealism in an ethical, not in a metaphysical sense here. And that is, she values only the noble in human life, the exalted, the ideal, the pure on earth. She knows that human beings can be good, even great, and she expects them to be good. She has an exalted view on what human nature is and what human beings might be and ought to be. Look at the things she loves, the things she values. The Greek statuette, Roark's buildings, Roark himself. She loves only man at his highest and best. But at the same time that she's an impassioned idealist, she's also a profound pessimist. She's a profound philosophical pessimist, believing that the noble and the exalted have no chance in a world that prefers the Inquirer to Michelangelo, or the Banner in the universe of the Fountainhead. Now, this conflict explains her actions and her character. Why did she destroy the Greek statuette? Because there's no world for it. Why does she attempt to kill off Roark's career? I mean, why does she joins forces with Ellsworth Toohey in an anti-Roark alliance. They come from polar opposite ends of the philosophical spectrum. They're literally 180 degrees opposite. But they agree on one thing, that Roark's career must be destroyed. Toohey, the collectivist, seeking to establish a communist dictatorship in America, wants Roark finished because Roark, the independent thinker, threatens the collectivist dictatorship. In other words, Roark threatens his world. Dominique, who thinks that Roark will be killed off by a corrupt society slowly and painfully in the way that Cameron was, Dominique wants Roark killed to protect him from the world. So Toohey wants to protect the world from Roark. Dominique wants to protect Roark from the world. For Toohey, this is an act of ending Roark's career is an act of spiritual murder. For Dominique, it's spiritual mercy killing. It's euthanasia. But they agree on one thing. Roark must die, or at least his career must be ended. Notice that for Dominique, it's extremely important that Roark's career be ended at her hand, not at the hands of society, not at the hands of a society that rejects him, but at the hand of somebody who understands and reveres his work. Now, Dominique remains loyal to her values the only way she can, by destroying them, to save them from the world. Now, what enables Dominique to be saved, if I can use religious terms? I like using religious terms. Dominique's salvation. Because she is a thinker, because she is a first-handed observer. She watches, she understands the events happening around her. She's a thinker. She sees that Roark, notice that Dominique puts herself in the grandstand, in effect. She's watching the events of this story from the time of the started temple, when she marries Keating, to when Roark asks her to help him blow up Cortlandt. For those years, she's in the grandstand, observing the events of this story. She's not actively pursuing values. And notice what she observes. She sees that Roark moves ahead despite all of the opposition, that Roark cannot be stopped. She sees that Peter Keating fails, and fails because he sells his soul. She sees that Toohey is helpless to stop Roark. She sees that Wynand is moving towards some disaster and because of his pandering to the mindless herd. She comes to realize that Roark is right. The rational, moral man can succeed. Indeed, the rational, moral man is the only one who can succeed. The irrational, immoral man can end up only in self-destruction. She comes thereby to accept the benevolent universe premise of Roark. She rejects the malevolent universe view. She comes to see that human society is open to the achievement of rational values, and open only to the achievement of rational values. And she's then free of the fear that Roark will be destroyed. Notice she says to him before the Cortlandt trial, she says, you know, even if they imprison you, even if they put, if you're in jail for years, she says, I know that you've won, that you're right, you're the one, you're the type of person who moves the world, you're the type of person who gives life its meaning, these others don't matter. She says, if you go to jail, it doesn't matter, I'll be waiting for you when you get out. She's free now of the fear that Roark will be destroyed. And of course, she's then free to live with Roark openly and joyously and to marry him. Now notice the conclusion here. It's Dominique's method, her first-hand method, that enables her to correct her error in content. Being independent means to be a thinker. You're not an emotionalist following your emotions or desires. You're not a conformist following others. It means you're a thinker. Being independent does not make you infallible. You're a thinker, you could make thinking errors. What it does do is give you a self-correcting mechanism. It gives you a mechanism by means of which to correct your errors. And Dominique, watching the world, watching events, focused on the facts, thinking about them, understanding them. This is what enables her to correct her error and move from her original malevolent universe premise to her ultimate benevolent universe premise. Don't have any questions on Dominique? I see a hand.
What about the rape scene? That's on first observation, it would seem that that was a direct violation of that respect between human beings, which is Roark's biggest value and which is hers. How do you explain that?
All right, the question involves the rape scene. It looks like a violation of Dominique's rights, which would certainly contradict the virtue of Roark's character, right? And the belief that people, live independent lives means they have the right to live independent lives. And if that was a rape scene, there would be a violation of Dominique's rights. But there's nothing about that scene that's actually a rape. What did Ayn Rand once say about that? That this is rape. It's rape by engraved invitation. And here's what we need to do. We need to go back and look at those chapters in the Granite Quarry very carefully and see the way Ayn Rand sets that scene up. Rape is obviously a heinous crime. That's an egregious violation of a woman's rights or of the victim's rights, and it requires an unwilling victim. And so one question is, well, is Dominique unwilling to sleep with Roark? And the facts of those chapters would indicate that to say that Dominique is willing to sleep with Roark is a very pale approximation of her desires. To say that she's eager to do so is still doesn't capture the essence of her feelings. If you said Dominique's desperate to sleep with Roark, you get it. She's desperate. And Ayn Rand makes that very clear. We can go through the facts that show how clear Ayn Rand makes it, which then leaves us with the question, once we've done that, is if Dominique's so desperate to sleep with Roark, why does she resist? Right? Which is a good question. But let's get there first. Notice that Dominique's the aggressor throughout the entire scene. She comes to the Granite Quarry. She's the one, flaunting her beauty. She's the one, had her name. She's the one who falls in love with Roark at first sight. She's the one who scratches the marble. She's the one who wants to get Roark into set. She's the one pacing, in this fever of sexual frustration, pacing, the floor, waiting for the marble to arrive, and then she sends for Roark. Roark sees through the game. He sends Pasquale Orsini instead. Dominique goes ballistic. Several days later, when she meets him on horseback, she says, after work, she says to him, "Why didn't you come set the marble?" And he says, "Well, I didn't think it made any difference who set the marble." But it did, didn't it, Miss Francon? And Dominique's got a branch in her hand, and she takes it and whack, across Roark's face, and she rides off into like the lunatic she is. Now, you got to understand, people communicate to each other in more than just verbal form, and what Dominique has just communicated to Roark is the message. I want you is such desperate